All right, so Atlanta. Again, I'm a fan of Arthur Smith, not really a fan of the Atlanta Falcons, but I love Arthur and his regime, the way that he built toughness, the way that he came from a background in which he didn't need to work a day in his life, and he still grinded being a GA and staying on Tennessee on 3 different staffs. First couple years, you had a Matt Ryan, an aging Matt Ryan. You got rid of him. He went to the Colts. He didn't do anything. Brought in Mariota, brought in Desmond Ridder. So, honestly, the Atlanta Falcons, this job, I think that they should have kept him one more year, especially with what they ended up with, because they did a huge, extensive search. They had time to mull over, who they wanted to hire. So they get Raheem Morris. And Raheem has been somebody, I like this story. It's a second opportunity to be a head coach. He was with Tampa Bay, but that wasn't a great circumstance. Atlanta with Dan Quinn, he didn't have great pieces. He was an interim coach at that time. This is somebody that has been in the NFL a very long time, and it's a great story. It's a beautiful story. The guy, from all interviews and all accounts, is a great person. So even though I really like Arthur Smith, it's going to be hard to root against Raheem Morris because of his story of perseverance in becoming a head coach, and him coming back to Atlanta, and his relationship with Arthur Blank is really special. So, kind of hoping for the best for Raheem Morris in this circumstance. But there are concerns with Raheem Morris. I mean, with the Rams, he had great star players, and Sean McVay was really the star. Same with, you could say Les Snead. He did help out the defense win some of those games. I think he's a stable, solid coach, but is he going to take this offense to the next level? And honestly, I thought that Ben Johnson and Mike McDonald are the best hires you can make in the cycle. You also have Slowick, which is who could really be a successful coach. But you don't really have a quarterback. You don't have a top 5 pick, so every quarterback is probably going to go in the top 5. You can go out and get Kirk Cousins and get your way, like a Case Keenum, to the playoffs. You can go to a divisional round and win probably 11 or 12 games with Kirk. Get a wide receiver at 8. Like, that might be your best route to go, and then you get that jump start. I really think Arthur built a great team with Terry. I think the D-line is ready to roll. I think you add another piece to that D-line, it can be elite. And losing Nielsen, but now you're adding in a Raheem Morris, so the defense can just be more consistent. The secondary needs to get a lot better, and Nielsen honestly needed more seasoning. He was only there 1 year. So I would have kept Arthur Smith because they were thinking about hiring Belichick. Rich McKay is already there. Raheem Morris, I don't know if he's going to be consistently elite. I think he's a fine defensive coordinator, but from an offensive play calling standpoint, from a defensive standpoint, I think they'll be fine. It wasn't like that Rams. He had a lot of young players on that Rams defense. You have Stafford and Sean McVay. Raheem Morris, though, is hungry to prove himself. I don't think it's an awful hire. I'm going to give it a C+ or a B-. I don't see them going and winning a Super Bowl, though, in Atlanta. But Arthur Smith and Terry built a great product. I think Arthur, if you gave him one more year, he would have really drafted. If you gave Arthur the quarterback in the draft, if he hit on the quarterback, I think Arthur would have literally had one of the most successful runs as a head coach you can have. But the fan base is very impatient. The ownership is very indecisive. Rich McKay and Arthur Blank are not on the same page, and Terry Fontenot is kind of just in the mix right now. The owner wanted Belichick all along to win a championship. The defense is pretty good. You have really good running game. You have a great tight end that's willing to be unleashed. That is a talent. The way Pitts catches the football, the way he runs is elite. Drake London is fine, but he's a wide receiver too. The offensive line, if they stay healthy, could be really good. Like Arthru and Terry built this thing brick by brick, and Raheem Morris is going to come in here, and he has a chance to really succeed. Like, this is one of the best jobs on the market because you have defensive talent like Amyamata, Ellis, Troy Anderson, A.J. Terrell, Okuda you can re-sign, Jesse Bates. You have good players on this defense. Offensively, you just needed a quarterback, and Arthru Smith lost a lot of close games without having a quarterback. Now, you could say that Arthur got fired because he doesn't know bleep from bleep when it comes to a quarterback, and that he doesn't know quarterback play at all. But then why didn't you hire Slowick or Ben John? Why didn't you hire a really good offensive coordinator? Because that's been the problem, has been offense. So that's what I would have went, is offense. In Carolina, their whole team is terrible. So there you needed somebody who could build up a team. And there Raheem Morris would have even been like very good to build a defense with. Is Raheem Morris going to get quarterback right? I mean, he's going to bring in Zach Robinson, who's very, very young. I could see the thing failing. And right now, I think Arthur Smith's real undoing is that when the fans get fixated on the draft. So when you draft Drake London at the 8th overall pick, they expect him to be a CeeDee Lamb impact player. When you draft Bijan Robinson, you expect to hit the ground running immediately, even though Jahmyr Gibbs is closer to Bijan Robinson than people want to admit. So you needed a quarterback because I bet defenses were stacking the box. And then other than Pitts, Drake London is like a 2, or he's a B-B wide receiver. You didn't get any other fast slot receivers in the draft. Like, you needed to draft a Tank Dell or a Wan'Dale Robinson, and you needed a quarterback. So, it was one of those things where Atlanta, like, you're building a cake or you're building a car, and the car itself is nice. The engine is there. The body of the car is perfect. But you need a key and you need a driver of the car. And the key is the quarterback. You can't drive. The car can't move without the quarterback. You need a key to start the car. So Arthur and Terry built the car. I really think so. The first 2 years, they won 7 games. They overachieved. But then with how horrible the schedule was, with how terrible Ritter ended up being, with how defiant Arthur was, the hubris of starting Ritter, with him in press conferences, growing out the mustache, having the us against the world mentality, even to the fans and the reporters, he became unlikable to the reporters, became unlikable to a lot of fans, and that did him in. He's going to have to be a tad softer to fans in his next stop. And he needs to go to a situation with a quarterback, and he needs to be an offensive coordinator that has, like, I know Tannehill was fine, but he needs to go to a place where he could function with quarterback play. And that's what Arthur needed to do. So, again, I wish the Arthur thing worked out, and I was fighting against Falcons fans, and I really think if you gave Arthur 2 more years and he drafted Bo Nix, that we could be living in an alternate reality where Arthur Smith could have turned into Jim Harbaugh at Michigan and he could have been hoisting trophies. But that's hypothetical. But the first 2 years, he overachieved, and then him and Terry built the team through the line of scrimmage, which is what I wanted. So he did all the heavy lifting and the hard work. He built the cake. There was no icing to that cake. There was no key to that car. And Arthur didn't drive the car very well as an offensive coordinator. So Raheem Morris, good defensive coordinator, has been around a while, waited his time patiently, knows the NFL game. He can come in and actually be pretty solid, like can take you to a playoffs. But is the upside there? Is it Super Bowl there? Because I think the way that Terry and them built the roster, you actually hit on quarterback and a wide receiver in an NFC that's weak, this could be one of the jobs in which you can roll to a division title and where you could honestly get 12 wins and be in an NFC championship game within 2 years. I don't know about next year, but you could be on the doorstep of a Super Bowl, and I believe Raheem can do that. But can he be consistent? Can he get quarterback right? He was probably my 4th or 5th choice in this process. I agreed with not getting Belichick, actually, because Belichick is older and also has really failed at offensive coordinator hire and failed at quarterback evaluation for the past several years. Raheem Morris is familiar with Blank, familiar with Atlanta. There's a chance that Slowick maybe didn't want this job, that Ben Johnson, who's really tight with Arthru Smith, maybe didn't want the job. That's understandable. So, overall, it's a fine hire. Like, in this hiring process, we have Dave Canales, Brian Callahan. Callahan's actually really talented, but I think he might align himself with Will Levis in this process. I think Canales is all right, but I think Raheem Morris beats out a lot of coaches here. He beats out like a Canales. He might even beat out a Bobby Slowick. He's going to get the defense rolling. He's going to take what Arthur built, continue to build up this team. You have a lot of veterans there that are respected, great culture and locker room, and I think that he's going to continue to enhance that. But I see playoffs and then like first round or second round exits. The offense I'm worried about. I'm worried about if Raheem is going to nail the quarterback and going to nail the OC hire. And that would be the problem if I guess anybody. But I think the culture can be good. I think the defense can continue to be enhanced. I think Nielsen was good but needed seasoning. I mean, he let Josh Dobbs, for goodness sakes, drive it on him. He let Bryce Young and the winless Panthers drive it on him. Justin Fields and Derek Carr lit their defense up at the end of the season. So Nielsen is likable, unlike maybe Arthur was, and Nielsen was young as a coordinator. So if they would have stayed patient, I think Arthur and Nielsen could have worked. I don't think that there's a huge difference between Arthur and Raheem Morris. I think that if Ben Johnson really wanted the job, if Bobby Slowick wanted the job, the thing could have really turned. Like, Ben was the elite coach. There's not many of the elite coaches, but Ben and Mike McDonald, to me, are my elite coaches in this cycle. And ironically, one's going to get hired, and the other's probably going to be picky about where he's going to go. And then some of the other coaches are good coordinators that need like another year before they become those elite candidates. Like, I like Kellen Moore. I think Arthur Smith can bounce back. I'm not going to quit on Arthur Smith. And that's kind of what I view right now, the Atlanta Falcon job and everything to do with Atlanta. So it's a 13-minute video on Raheem Morris. How can you root against him? Guy who's paid his dues, one of the nicest guys in professional football. It's somebody I'm honestly, again, I'm really sad that Arthur got fired. I'm an Arthur Smith fan. I think Atlanta fans, I can understand their frustration and optically losing to some of the horrible teams. Like, Arthur would tell you it was a bad year, but I wanted Arthur to get one more redeeming shot with a quarterback that he can draft in the first round or a free agent like Kirk. It didn't work. And it's sad that we don't live in that reality. I think that Arthur Blank, listened to Rich McKay, and there's all these voices there. It's sad. But again, Raheem Morris is somebody that I can't hate on. I mean, the guy is absolutely deserving of this opportunity. He's a D coordinator on a championship level roster. His resume is better than Brian Callahan and Canales. Now, sometimes the inexperienced guys can have those higher upsides. Like, you can hit on a McVay, you can hit on Zach Taylor, right? You can hit on the inexperienced guys. And sometimes the experienced guys can be average or retread-like, but sometimes they could work in his second stint. Like Andy Reid, all right? So it's a great job for Raheem and a great opportunity. So I really am happy for him. Drake London, Bijan, all the guys that Arthur and Terry drafted. Like, I really like Terry as a person too. And I like this roster. I like this group of guys on this football team. I love the offensive line. I love the guys like Amyamata. It's a tough group of Arthur Smith, like gritty, high-character football players. And it seems like a culture that can sustain. They're really emotional that Arthur left, but I think that they'll like Raheem Morris, and I think that there's a chance that they'll rally around it, and there's a chance Atlanta can be solid next year and for the following years. But how great can this hire be? That's why I'll give it a B hire. I think it's a fine hire, but it's not the elite of the elite hire, like a Ben Johnson, maybe Slowick, great offensive coordinator that could really draft and develop a quarterback. So there you go. But maybe Zach Robinson is great. And again, Raheem's going to keep that culture intact. And I don't think they're going to fall off tremendously. I think he will take what is being built and continue to enhance a little bit. But the ceiling of a Super Bowl team with Raheem is something that I question. But again, I think a playoff steadier ship can happen in Atlanta with Raheem Morris.